thank you for coming in to the first student membership event of the year. We're very excited to kickstart things with Meag from Idea Factory here today, who will be telling us about LinkedIn and how it is not just a digital resume. So Meag, take it away.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's hard I was just telling Rahaf, it's kind of hard to prepare a presentation when people can be in a lot of different places with LinkedIn, whether you're just starting out, never used it, use it all the time and looking to get better. So I'm hopeful that what we are going to chat about today is useful. And I've left a decent chunk of time at the end for questions and discussions so that I can really speak to what folks on the call are most interested in hearing about. So really quickly, this is the whole agenda for today. This is what I've put together, tried to keep it kind of simple. I'll do a little intro of myself. I have a LinkedIn story to tell you, and then we'll talk about owning your career, go over the parts of your LinkedIn profile, and then I've left some time at the end for questions. Do feel free to pop stuff in the chat, especially I have ADHD, so I know if I don't put it in the chat when I think of it, I will forget it. So feel free to do that. If we don't get to it in the moment, we will get to it at the end. So definitely feel free to do whatever feels right and comfortable to you. So looking at intros, so just a little bit about myself. So I did a 9-year undergraduate degree, which is a long time. But I was in science, I was in pharmacy, I was in a commerce program for a couple of years, and then I actually graduated with a BA in English and Psych. So I do have a experience in a lot of different programs, and I know that every program is a little bit different. My LinkedIn profile I originally created it when I was a business student because I was told to as a business student by faculty and prof. And, I, for a long time, didn't really necessarily know how to get a lot out of it. And LinkedIn is different now than it was when I was a business student in 2010. It's changed a lot, particularly since COVID hit and a lot of business events went away. LinkedIn definitely has changed a lot as a platform in the last 3 to 4 years. So that's my educational background. And then work-wise, just some of the highlights of my marketing career. So I was a copywriter at M5. I took a break and did some other work there in the middle, but then I was in the tech world. So I was a marketing specialist at Vision 33 and then a content marketer at Colab. I joined the team before Series A and kind of saw that as we like tripled in size and tripled in revenue. And now I am back in the agency world here at Idea Factory, and I'm the creative content lead. So I do all our social and content stuff there. So that's just a little bit about who I am and where I'm coming from. Um, but I'd love to hear, like, for anyone who's on the call, just a little bit about you. So if you want to type in to the chat either what program you're in, what field you want to work in, your dream career. If you don't know, that's also fine. But just really curious to know what kind of fields people are coming from or wanting to go into, what kind of programs you're in. So if people could pop that in the chat, that would be great. Computer science, I figure we'll have some computer science people on the call. Yeah, feel free to do that. Computer science. Hoping to get a co-op, get coding. Oh, love Get Coding, great program. Awesome. Okay. Oh, we got a few Get Codings. Okay. Correctional officer, tech sales, geography. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating, folks. Keep going. I'm gonna flip to the next side, but we got quite a wide range. So that's probably what I expected, but it's good to know. So this is my little LinkedIn story. So before I got hired at Colab, there were a few different ways that LinkedIn helped me get that job. And I just thought I'd go through them because I don't know if they'll be what people would expect necessarily. But first off, so actually, let me back up a little, sorry. So before I started at Colab, I was working at another tech company, like I said, Vision 33, and I had really started to use LinkedIn more often. I was logging in every day. I was consuming content there. it's probably spending, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes or more per day. Not necessarily every day, not really on a schedule, but I was just getting more active on the platform. And that is how I discovered the job posting. So Collab was at the time pre-Series A, about 30 people. So their job posting never went up for the content marketer role. It never went up on Career Beacon or one of those websites. You have to pay to post on those websites, and a startup has a limited budget. So they never posted it as a paid posting anywhere. I don't even think they posted it as a LinkedIn job per se. I don't think people were using that a lot at the time. So it was just something that was organically posted by the people who worked there. And I'm sure the company page posted it, but it was actually one of the people who worked there that is how I found out about it. So I wouldn't have even known that job opening existed, wouldn't have known it was open if I hadn't been on LinkedIn, connected to enough people and engaging enough to see the opening when it came up. And tech companies move really fast. So it's really important to be aware when a posting opens, when there's a chance to get in, because they often won't put an application deadline, and they will often start interviewing people pretty quickly. And I'm speaking in general terms, but it's important to be kind of quick and finding out about these roles. So you want to be looking and be online and see what's going on. It helped me to get to know the current team. So I don't know if people already do this, but I went and checked out all the people I'd be working with. So I looked at Adam Keating's profile, the CEO at Collab. At the time, Taylor Young was their head of business development. She's now chief strategy officer. My marketing coworker, a couple other relevant people. I just went into Collab's page, clicked on the people tab, and I started checking out all the people that I might be working with, which really just helps you get a sense of who your teammates could be and understanding who you're talking to when you're going through the application process. I messaged the hiring manager. So Taylor Young, like I said, I sent her a cold message. I'd never talked to Taylor before, but she had posted, hey, if you're interested in this job, send me a message. And I did. And I still applied through the regular channels. And I don't even remember what I said, but it was just kind of, hey, I'm interested in this role. Here's why I'm interested and what I think my strengths are and why I think it's a fit, and sent it off. And that way, when she was reviewing my application, we already had that kind of conversation back and forth. She already had an idea of who I was. I leveraged a mutual connection. So because I had looked at all the people at Collab on the team, I was able to realize that the marketing specialist who was already on the team, we had a connection in common, someone I knew from Dow, and he had also gone to Dow. He knew him from Dow. And so I was able to message that mutual connection and say, hey, we had done each other some favors back and forth. We had a good relationship. And I said, hey, if you just want to let your buddy know that you know me, that would be really helpful, if you think I'd be a good fit for this role. And so my friend John did message the marketing person at Collab and let them know, like, hey, yeah, I can vouch for her. And I also used in-platform recommendations on my resume when I applied to Collab. And this is just like a little interesting use case for LinkedIn that's kind of specific, but I think it's really interesting to do. So I will show you exactly what I mean. On LinkedIn, your recommendations section, which we'll talk about later, exists. So I had some recommendations in there. And instead of just leaving them on my LinkedIn profile and hoping someone would go read them, I pulled some of the best parts out and created a little section on my resume called endorsements. And this is something I've done a lot over the years. And I just find it's a really great way to get some kind of like testimonials basically on your resume, and source them from LinkedIn so people can still go see the social proof there. So rather than just listing references, I actually put, I call it endorsements. You can call it whatever you want. But it's cool because people can go and verify on your LinkedIn profile, like, oh, hey, yeah, this person publicly said this. So it's a nice little bit of social proof to add in there. So that's just some of the ways that LinkedIn was part of my job search when I got hired at Collab. And noticed like none of those really had to do with how I had my profile set up. None of those really had to do with content I posted. It was all just different ways that I use the platform. So that's one of the things that I want to get across when I talk about LinkedIn is that there's a lot of different ways to use it. And it's not just a digital resume as we talked about. So, but before we talk about LinkedIn specifically, I called this section Owning Your Career. And I just kind of wanted to give a little foundation here. So, um, in your career, even if you're not a marketer, you will need to market yourself to some extent. And I have no idea, some people on the call might have no interest in marketing, no familiarity in marketing. You don't have to become an expert marketer, but there is a little bit of marketing involved in your career development, in landing a job, in sort of building up your career over time. And so there's some basics here, with marketing. Before you even do anything with your profile, before you use LinkedIn at all, you need to sort of decide on some basics, some foundational things. So, what are your goals and who is your audience? And I've been in the situation, especially as a student, like sometimes your goal is like, I just need a job. Like I need a job right now and like to pay my bills and survive. So sometimes that's the goal and I get that. But if we're thinking like bigger picture and longer term, what are your goals? What are you trying to actually achieve? Is it that you want to work for a specific company? Is it that you want to work in a specific industry? Is it that you want, a certain job title or a certain career path? Just sitting down and having that conversation with yourself to figure out, okay, what do I actually want? What do I want to get out of this? Um, and who is your audience? So, if you're speaking to everyone, you're not really speaking to anyone. The more specific you can be, whether it is like, I want to get the attention of recruiters in the tech industry, or maybe it's I want to get the attention of Collab software, or like maybe it's a specific company. Maybe, there could be all sorts of different things, but deciding who you're talking to, so that you can really tailor your profile, even if you're not posting content, but tailoring your profile to that audience. It's very important to get clear on that for yourself. And I like to put it this way, like, what is the one thing you want to be known for? And the more specific that is, the better. Jonathan Perry, who I'll mention later, the way he puts it is this, Pepsi and Coke. If you looked at just the nutritional facts of Pepsi and Coke, they're the same. But obviously there's a difference between Pepsi and Coke, or maybe not obviously, maybe you don't think there's a difference, but they have different brands and stuff, and that's sort of his idea of personal branding. I don't like the phrase personal branding very much. I don't really use it. That is sort of what we're talking about here. But I think brand calls to mind like certain colors and visual identity and logo. And it's not so much about that, but it's more about like, if you could only be known for one thing, what would you want that to be? So for me, when I put together things and when I talk to people, like it's writing. Like all I want, if people only remember one thing about me, I want them to remember that I'm a writer. And uh, there are people that I run into all around town who will introduce me to other people, and that is the main thing that I find people will say, "Oh yeah, they're a really great writer." So you can't be known for everything, and figuring out if you could get any recruiter, any hiring manager, any person to remember one thing about you, knowing what that one thing is really important. And the hard part is that it can be a lot of different things. It can be very specific, it can be broader, but it can be, again, focused on a strength that you have. It can be focused on an industry that you're passionate about. Lots of different ways to shape what that one thing is. But deciding that before you go in to build your profile, and it can change. It can change over time, but deciding that will really help you make decisions and focus what you're trying to do with your profile. There are no magic formulas or right answers. This is just something I want to be really clear about, especially I find sometimes the way that LinkedIn is taught in workshops at universities, and this is not to knock workshops at universities or business faculties or anything, but sometimes, same with resumes and careers, you get these rules. You get, it's like, you have to do it this way and you have to have it formatted like this and do this and this and this. And my experience is that there are no rules. There's definitely no magic formulas. You're trying to stand out. And if I were to tell you, here's the way to stand out, you do this and this and this, well, then everyone goes and does those things. No one's going to stand out. So I can't tell you, here's how to stand out. And different things work for different people. The role that LinkedIn plays in your career is going to be different for different people. You know, as a marketer, I find having an active LinkedIn presence is very fitting for a marketing career, but not everyone needs to have the same level or type of presence. And that's why I really want to emphasize that there are so many different ways to use LinkedIn that are not just about how you put together your profile and not just about posting content or whether you post content or not. Um, and you'll see a lot of advice and people out there that will tell you there's a magic formula. And I think that it's really important to do what works for you and what feels right for you. And part of figuring out what works for you and what feels right for you is to try things and to get out there and to actually spend some time on the platform. So, results come from small, consistent efforts over time. It's like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym one day and do one circuit workout and then go, oh yeah, I'm done. I've gotten what I want. It's all these little things over time that add up. And so if you're only going to LinkedIn when you need something, you're a bit behind. You're trying to get something out without having put the time in. So how much you use LinkedIn and what way you use LinkedIn, I can't tell you what that needs to look like. I find, because I have ADHD and just the way I am, if I actually make a content plan for a month, let's say, I'm less likely to post. I need to do it kind of off the top of my head because once I make a plan, it becomes a chore. But for someone else, they might not be comfortable without having a plan or like kind of planning out a month. For some people, it might be more of a routine thing of, okay, I'm gonna log on this many times per week and do X thing, like comment on 5 posts or whatever it is. Like if you want to set some SMART goals for yourself, you know what works for you best. So the main thing is that, LinkedIn is one piece of your career development toolbox. How much you use it, what way you use it is going to be very unique to you. So it's tough to say, here's exactly what you do, because my main message is like, I can't tell you exactly what to do. So, I'll go through some profile stuff in a minute, but I just really, really want to emphasize that point of, what works for me might not work for everybody. And, there's all sorts of pieces of advice and hacks and things out there. I'm not here to vouch for them or say they're wrong, but I really don't believe in magic formulas. And I really want everyone to feel like you have the permission to go out and try things and do what feels right to you and know that you have that freedom. So I think that's enough rambling on that point. Um, and then I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Marketunist. I love the Marketunist's comics, and I just wanted to bring these ones in because this is something you see a lot. LinkedIn is a professional network. I have a lot of issues with the term professionalism, but do feel like you can be yourself. Being professional doesn't have to mean being formal. It doesn't have to mean it can mean a lot of different things. If you're looking to go into certain industries or certain fields, then you should look at what other people are doing in those fields and in those industries. I'm speaking as a marketer, but finance professionals, you might have a little bit more of a professional tone than a marketer does. But there's a lot of wording and things that we see that I feel like people think they have to put things in certain terms. But the quote that comes to mind is the one from Einstein: if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So being able to talk about your own experience in simple terms and concrete terms is really important. So I just wanted to bring up these comics because I really enjoy them. So profile. All right. Your headline and profile photo, these are probably two of the most important pieces of your LinkedIn profile. Headlines are really hard to write. Even as a writer, I struggle, and there's a lot of different ways to do them. But the comes back to that slide of like, what's the one thing you want to be known for? Again, there's no rule, there's no magic formula. You'll see lots of things out there. Some people will have their headline be their current position and maybe just that. Some people will have a phrase in there that's sort of their personal tagline. Some people will do a combo of those things. Some people will, I've seen people put their cell phone number in their headline and say, text me if you want help with this. Certainly wouldn't be me, but there's all kinds of things you can do with that space. And I'll come back to this at the end, but writing the headline is pretty hard. And if you spend a lot of time on it, that's not a bad thing. But also don't stress over it. You can change it anytime. I change mine all the time. I probably change mine too much, but I'll come back to why this is important. But your profile photo, it should be your face. That is the main thing. You don't have to worry about whether it's a professional headshot or not. A lot of mine have been, a lot of mine currently is a more of a professional headshot because I had it done at the agency here. But the one I had before this was just a selfie that I took on my phone at home. And that worked really well. So I think the main thing is just have it be your face and, you know, recognize that it's going to be some people's first impression of you. You don't have to smile if that's not your vibe, but certainly just feel free to kind of make sure it expresses you and who you want to present yourself as. But definitely you should have one and it should be your face. It should not be a logo. It should not be a non-face picture. Cover photo. So your cover photo is not, again, it's not super important exactly what you do with it. Like you can just pick an image that you like. It could be, you know, a landscape shot of Newfoundland. It could be, you know, something that represents your work, like a bookshelf or whatever. Or you can sort of use Canva or something to make a little graphic. You know, if you have a website or a portfolio link that you want to drive people to, that's a good place to kind of put that up there and say, like, check out my work here. I use mine to kind of reiterate my key points. Like my current one says, hey, I'm a writer and a content strategist, and it gives some key points about how I approach copywriting. I've seen it used in a lot of different ways. So you can kind of do what you like there. People are only going to see your cover photo if they come to your profile. They don't see it in other places on the website. So keep that in mind. Your about section, I get a lot of questions from a lot of people about sections. And there's a lot of freedom in the about section. You know, it's kind of your chance to tell your story and to arrange what you want people to know about you into a bit of a narrative. And so I do recommend kind of doing that. You can keep it short and sweet. You can go longer. I have maxed out the character count on that before. I know some people who just put a couple lines in. I do highly recommend writing it in the first person. So you will see some people in their about section that will write it in the third person. So third person being, instead of me writing, I am a marketer, third person would be writing, Megan is a marketer. And I've seen very accomplished executives who still have an about section that's written in the third person. And when I see that, it makes me feel like they're very out of touch. It doesn't matter how accomplished they are as an executive. It makes me feel that they don't understand digital platforms. Your LinkedIn profile is yours. You're the one writing it, so you should write it from yourself. You should be saying, I am this, I am that, whatever, however you want to do it. If you're writing a bio or something else that's going to go somewhere. Like I wrote a bio for this workshop that I sent to Rahaf that wasn't going to be posted by me. So I wrote it in the third person. But when it's your LinkedIn profile and everyone knows that it's your LinkedIn profile and you're the one filling it out, write it from yourself. So that's my main point there. But there's a lot of things you can do there. I would say if it stresses you out, don't let it stress you out. I mean, easier said than done, I know, but um just sort of don't be afraid to try things. I rewrite mine all the time on a whim, and you'll see what works. Go check out other profiles and see which ones you like if you're not sure where to go with it. And it's something that you can, ask for feedback on, change over time. But really, if you think about what do you want to be known for, who is your audience, what are your goals, then it should help you understand what you want to put in that about section. Activity. So on someone's profile, there's an activity feed space. So even if you never post content, if you're actively commenting on other people's posts, that will show up there. So it's just something to keep in mind that if you're not active on LinkedIn, then nothing will show in that activity feed, or what will show there is like months old. Sometimes when I'm checking out someone's LinkedIn profile, the last thing in their activity feed will be from 10 months ago. And that will be assigned to me. It's like, okay, this person doesn't really use LinkedIn very much. And maybe they're logging on every day, but they're not engaging with any content on the platform, whether that's posting their own content or just, engaging with other people's. And so that doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it's just something that if a recruiter or a hiring manager is looking over your profile, that activity space, even if you're not posting your own content, but also if you are, it will show them, if you are active and what you're engaging with. And so it's a good chance to sort of just give a little bit more insight and context. It's personally, if I'm hiring, I like to know that someone's keeping up with um, conversations in the industry and just keep continually kind of learning and continually engaging and being part of the discussions that are happening around a topic or a field or an industry. So that is a place where as someone's scrolling through your profile, they're going to see what you're up to. Experience and under experience, I'm also thinking of education, licenses and certifications, and volunteering, kind of those other sections. I don't have a ton to say about this. This is the part where I feel like there's a lot more overlap with your resume. So it's up to you if you want to put bullet points in each one. I've done different approaches over time. Sometimes I don't even really fill out the little sections under the experience. I keep my experience up to date. I have all my roles there. I did add a few little points recently, but it's not crazy important what goes under each experience item. It's kind of up to you how much you want to fill out there. I do recommend, though, skills is the next one. I do recommend kind of associating your skills with your different jobs. But yeah, just having your experience listed out. And when it comes to volunteering and licenses and certifications and that kind of stuff, with volunteering, I definitely take a pretty broad approach to that. Like I will probably add this session to my volunteer section. Is it like a formal volunteer role? No, but it's something I volunteered to do. And so, feel free to kind of add things that you might not think of as official positions but if they're things that you did, they still could be relevant. And then the recommendations section. So yeah, I did mention this one already. I will say every recommendation in my recommendations section, I asked for it and in some cases chased it down. None of those came in without me asking. So that is a section that I haven't had any new recommendations in the last 3 or 4 years just because I've slacked off on asking for them. But I do recommend that you get in the habit of asking for them. They're really, really valuable to have. They are publicly on your profile, once you get it once. I have one that's from 2011, and it's still there. And that person has gone on to be a very impressive person in the finance world. And it's from when we were a student together. but you do have to ask for them, and it's a really good habit to get into asking for them, in a timely manner. Like right now, I could go back and ask certain people, that I worked with years or months ago, and I could do it, and they'd probably write me one, but it's always best to do it when it's like timely and fresh. So, and then the other thing is I try to give as much as I get. So I do give people recommendations. Sometimes I will drop them the random unsolicited one, and which is always nice to do, but none of the ones that I have on my profile were unsolicited. They all came because I asked for them. So don't be afraid to ask people to write you a recommendation. And then don't be afraid to use those recommendations like I showed earlier on your resume or in whatever way you want. So then this is what I just wanted to point out with the headline and profile photo. They're really important because they follow you everywhere on the site. So even if someone never comes to your LinkedIn profile, um, they will see your headline and your profile photo, and they don't have to view your profile to actually see that information, and they will see it every time you comment. If you view their profile and show up in their profile views, anywhere around the site that you are seen, your profile picture and your headline are the two of the most recognizable. They're the most valuable pieces of real estate on LinkedIn. And I do want to note here that your headline will get cut off. So understanding, what parts are in the front of your headline, making sure that people can get something from the front of your headline without needing to read the whole thing. If you're using like the max character count, that's something I do recommend. So we've got lots of really good questions coming in that I'm noticing. So that is all I actually prepared to go through because, like I said, there's so many different ways to use LinkedIn. And I did want to get into your specific questions rather than trying to load too much information in here or get too specific. But just before we jump into the questions, I will say there are two people that I do recommend following for really, really good content around leveraging LinkedIn. Jonathan Perry he works at Dalhousie in the management career services team, and he's just phenomenal. His content is targeted at students and people who are early in their career, and he writes a lot about using LinkedIn and job search. He's a super helpful person to learn from. And then Mona Ganatra is just deadly content. She's a bit more advanced if you're really looking to kind of like post content and write on LinkedIn. She's got some excellent posts. She'll often do like kind of two side by side. She'll show the same post like rewritten and how she changed it and specifics. So some really, really good specific examples from Mona. And yeah, Rahaf, I don't know if you want to moderate the questions or if you want me to just go through and jump in.
Sure. We do got a couple of questions in the comments already, so that's a bit exciting. And if anybody has any more questions to ask, feel free to put them in the comments. But the first question we have is, I think that was referring to the recommendations being put in a resume. So
Yeah.
the question is, how do you have space for that section? Do you keep your resume as a two-pager?
I don't think I've ever done a resume for like my professional career that's less than 3 pages, to be honest. The rules about keeping it to 1 or 2 pages, I do not subscribe to them. My resumes are usually either 3 or 4 pages just because of the sheer amount of content I have. I can fit a 2 pager. I just don't stick to that because I don't see a reason to. When I've applied for like serving and bartending jobs, then I'll do a 1 page resume because I can fit everything I need to on 1 page. But when I'm applying for a marketing job or a professional job, I don't stick to 1 or 2 pages. I usually do at least 3 just because of the amount of stuff that I have to fit. And it's well formatted, it's concise. It's just that I have a lot of stuff to put on there. So how do I have space? I don't limit myself to 1 or 2 pages. That's how.
Awesome. And opinion on skewing towards headlines on high CTR versus informational ones most people use.
Um,
To add to that, what I mean by that is basically you would want people to click on your profile. Like you're putting all this information in there, but you actually want people to get on there and check those stuff out. So like, do you want to give a little tagline there? Because your tagline comes in your comment section and everything. So do you want to put something, put this or go like, hey, who is this guy? Click. Or versus this is my information. And but that they're less likely to click on you. So like where's the line between
Yeah.
yeah.
So I personally don't use my headline as like a way to get people to click on my profile. I use it more as if they never click on my profile, what are they going to know about me anyway? That's my use for it. And I look at it as like, how do I get people to click on my profile? It's like, well, am I saying interesting stuff? Am I posting interesting stuff and like doing it enough that eventually someone's gonna be like, oh, hey. And I find it's really funny. Like I will comment on a post and if it gets like a few likes, I'll usually see those people view my profile. And I'm not driving them there with my headline, but it's like what you're doing. I try to rely on that. So it's really funny how you'll see like a comment on a post and then someone will like it and then you'll see them like in your profile views. So I don't personally use it to drive people. Now, if I was a solopreneur and I had a my own business and like some very specific goals, I might want to be driving them to a specific spot. But Sweetfish Media is a B2B podcasting company based in the States, and something they've done at a team level. I don't know if they still do it, but for a long time, everyone on the team had the same line at the beginning of their headline. It was something like, I can't remember it now, which is not 100%. And so it was just sort of that way of putting that one thing in the headline and making sure that it's always there and looking at it more as like repetition of that key message versus like a conversion type of thing or like a click through thing of trying to get people to the profile. It's more like when I did B2B podcasting, I was going and searching for them and landing on the profile then. So I don't know if that's a good answer.
My understanding from my understanding is basically it depends going back to what's your purpose that you're putting all this work into LinkedIn. So like in my case, I'm looking for a job. So I'm hoping I can get more recruiters to go check me out. So I guess for this situation, it would be more appropriate to have something on there that they're more likely to go click you kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, and I think that then it's like, okay, well, what would make a recruiter, likely to click? And I think it's probably being clear about the strength or the one thing that you want them to remember or whatever it is that you're trying to kind of communicate about yourself. Because if I'm a recruiter and I'm looking for a web developer who specializes in whatever, something, having that information front and center is probably going to get me to click without you having to necessarily like push me to or tell me to, right? Like if they're in that mindset of looking for talent in that area, making sure that you're clear, hey, I am this talent.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, that's a great answer. Our next question is, in headlines, is it good practice to write certifications?
I think it depends. It depends on, is that certification, the one or two key things that you want people to know? Like how important is the certification? And I'm not sure if you mean just sort of like the initials, like I could have Megan Campbell BA or whatever in my name. I don't put my BA. Some degrees are different. Like some people, I know lots of people have PhD in their headline or in their name. If you are, I'm trying to think of an example. Um, but I think what's more important than the certification is what does it mean, like putting it into context. So I wouldn't say don't do it, but I think that the most important thing about the headline is that it communicates something concisely. So it depends on how core that certification is to what you're trying to achieve. But I think what you've learned from the certification or what value you bring because of that certification is probably going to be more important than what it is, and something that's like a detail that could be listed on a resume or something they'll see when they go to the profile. But if it's a really big selling point for you at this point, or if you look at job ads and they all ask for this certification, then maybe it does make sense to put it in there. So I would say it depends, which is not like the simplest answer or the most, sometimes that's not the answer people are looking for, but I would say it does depend. I think you certainly don't have to worry about not including certifications in your headline, but if you are feeling like you want to put them there, then I would just say making them contextual so that, you know better than me, right? Like if you look at job ads that you're interested in and that's listed in the requirements, or if you talk to a recruiter and you know they're looking for it, then it might make sense to include it there.
Awesome. So we do have a couple of questions that came in all about the recommendations that you've spoken about during your presentation. So the first question about that is, does it matter to recruiters how many recommendations I have received and given?
Yeah. I will say, like, I am not a recruiter, so, take what I think with a grain of salt. I don't know how much people look at the given section. But I would say that if someone is really actually taking a good look at your LinkedIn profile, if you don't have recommendations, it might not necessarily be a red flag, but if you do have them, that social proof really goes a long way. It's like they get to have, not a reference check per se, but it's getting ahead of the reference check and getting, seeing that someone is not only willing to vouch for you, because when you do a reference call, it's usually over email or phone, it's one-to-one. When someone puts a recommendation on your LinkedIn, it's a public display of their endorsement of your skills or their thoughts on you. So I would say that probably not having recommendations or not having, or how many you've given or received, I wouldn't say that a lot of recruiters would count you out because of that. But more so that it's gonna carry weight when you do have them there. And I don't know how many people look at the given one at all, but certainly the ones that you receive on your profile can go a long way.
Yeah, and as you said, it's always good to also pull and put in your resume when you're applying for jobs. So somebody else asked, so do you ask for recommendations through LinkedIn chat?
Yeah, I would say there's no one way to do it. It depends on your relationship with the person you're asking. If you have someone that you normally talk to by email or normally see face to face, you can ask them that way. You don't have to use LinkedIn to ask for the recommendation. I do find, when you're asking someone, it is an ask that you're putting on someone to even if it's just taking a couple minutes of their time to write out the recommendation. I always try to make it as easy as possible for someone, but I think it just depends on the relationship you have with them. So sometimes I have DM'd someone on LinkedIn and said, hey, could you write a recommendation for me? And it's just a really, really quick message. Sometimes I will email them and sort of like include a link or whatever and just sort of give them a little bit of context. Like there have been a couple times where I've asked for recommendations before I apply for something specific. So sometimes I will guide them into what I like. There have been times where I messaged someone and said, could you focus on my writing skills? Because I'm looking to apply to like a job that involves a lot of writing. So feel free to kind of give guidance, and that's helpful to people then too, because then they know what you're really looking for. But yeah, the way you ask for them, there is a way to like request a recommendation within LinkedIn. Like I think there's some sort of button or something. I haven't used that one a ton. I have used it. But I also find even when I use that, I often will end up following up. So don't be afraid to follow up if you ask for one and you don't get one. It's one of those things that can easily kind of fall off someone's radar. So there's no there's no one right way to do it. And I would say base it off your relationship with the person. If you normally talk on LinkedIn, then yeah, like it makes sense to do it on LinkedIn. If you see them in person all the time, maybe mention it to them in person and then send them a message or an email. Really depends on the person you're asking and your relationship with them.
And last question on recommendations is, when would be the good time to ask for a recommendation? Would it be right before leaving a company or while still working there?
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, I think the timing, I think it's gonna be a really individual answer. Like I've often asked for them after I've left a place, and especially like right after I leave, and while it's like kind of fresh and almost as like a, right when I leave, it's like, oh, hey, can you write me a recommendation? Or I'll be going back to someone I used to work with and asking them to write a recommendation for me. I don't know how often I've done it. I have had ones written while I'm still working at a place, but I think with that, it's you're really gonna have to feel it out on the situation.
So I'm just going to quickly add to that. So basically the reason why I asked that was HR is not going to like that. If word goes out kind of thing, why is this person trying to get recommendation on his LinkedIn, for example? Let's just say like you're in the process of like you found this amazing job opportunity, like you're having a really good job in company X, and this someone reached out to you, and you're like, wow, and but you want more, you want to put something good on your LinkedIn, for example. But the thing is, if that word got out in the company and HR knows about it, now the managers know about it, you're setting yourself up for a downward spiral in that company kind of thing. That's more so what I was implying.
Right. And I think that's fair to mention. I think that a lot of companies are in a lot of different places with LinkedIn. I think the best companies out there right now would never penalize anyone for building their personal brand on LinkedIn, whether that means they're going to leave for another opportunity or not. If I'm still working at a company and I'm asking for a recommendation internally, I would probably just say, hey, I'm just trying to build out my LinkedIn and not say it's for another job, but there shouldn't be anything wrong with you building out your LinkedIn profile while you're there. I mean, if you're really worried, then, you can always just look for recommendations from other places and get the one from that company after you leave if you're really worried about it. But at the same time, I think that more and more companies are aware that it's like a benefit to the company for people to build up their brand on LinkedIn, even if they leave, like it still benefits the company while they're there. And so I think it's valid, it's fair to worry about, but it's also, if you just say, hey, I'm just working on my LinkedIn profile, I think I think it's an old school mindset to think that if someone's working on their LinkedIn profile that they're actively ready to leave. And I mean, maybe you are, right? But and lots of old school mindsets are still out there. But I think that, I think it's a pretty individual one. So, you would know your HR team and department better than anyone. If it's a person that you trust and feel comfortable, you could say, hey, I'd really like to get a LinkedIn recommendation for you. I don't want to make a big deal about it. Just kind of maybe going to that person one-on-one and just, I mean, it's going to show up publicly on LinkedIn, but if you want to ask them to just sort of keep it a little bit quieter, think you'll know the situation best. That's my general thought.
Basically, there. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, next question we have is, do you think we should use the LinkedIn premium version?
I've never used it ever. You can't, I'm not saying it's not useful. I think of premium LinkedIn as being most useful for people who are doing sales on LinkedIn versus or if they're the recruiter. If you're job hunting, I think there's probably better costs that you could incur. I have never ever bothered to use it. I just don't. So you certainly can get by without it. If you want to put money into that, try it out, do a trial, then go for it. But you definitely don't have to do it.
Yeah, I personally never even used the premium version either. Never felt necessarily the need to. So somebody said, how regularly should they post on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Good question. Another one that's like hard to answer because it's going to depend on you and your time and your goals and things. But I think um, trying to build a habit is more important than how many times. And you learn the more you post, right? Like you can see, oh, like sometimes I post things and I wouldn't expect them to do well, and they do. And just getting in the habit of sharing stuff. And the other thing is like I share stuff that whether it does well or not, like things that people, what am I trying to say? Sorry, let me back up. There are things that I've shared on LinkedIn and I'll run into someone in person and they'll tell me, oh, I saw your post about blah, 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 blah. And they can tell me all about the post I made. They can tell me like the content of it. They didn't like the post. They didn't comment. They didn't engage with it at all. So like most people are lurkers. So I think the more you can put out what you're doing on LinkedIn, the more people will see it and the more they'll start to associate with you with those things. So I think how often should you be posting? Do it as much as it fits into your schedule and feels right to you, like as much as you can. If you can, there's no reason not to post, if you have stuff to share. I'm
Yeah, I
I'm
feel
I'm trying to keep my answers a little shorter so we can get through more because I feel like I'm getting behind here.
you're all good. We'll just try to get to as many questions as we can with the time we have. So, there are specific websites about company reviews like Glassdoor. Is it good practice to post on LinkedIn about previous experience or interview at a company?
I would say I wouldn't use LinkedIn the same way that you use something like Glassdoor. Glassdoor is kind of purposely takes some of the names and things out of it. Um, it depends on if you're talking about posting about a positive or a negative experience. If you're posting about like a positive experience, go for it. Name the company if you want. Like I shout out companies when I see stuff that I like. If you have a negative experience, it's fine to share it. I would share it as like a lesson, not a complaint. Like if there's like if you have a point to make or sort of like what you took away from it, versus like a rant. But when you're talking about negative stuff, I do find I personally value when people don't necessarily trash the company, like when they keep the name out of it. And so then it would also depend on like how likely is someone to identify what you're talking about based on your post, even if you don't put their name in it. Like if I were to be like, I worked for a tech company, there's only like a couple places it could be. So I try not to like share experiences that are like calling out a company. I mean, if they did something super egregious, then maybe I would call out a company. But when I'm just trying to share like a negative experience, I try to take all the identifying info out of it.
Awesome. And next question we have is, I have previous career and trying to step into the tech industry. How much should I showcase my previous career?
I think um, I think it's fine to talk about your previous career as much as it makes sense. And transferable skills are hugely important. So, I think it would just be about putting it into the context of like, here's what I've done. And if you're trying to kind of pivot into the tech industry, like depending on how far along you are in figuring out where and what exactly you're looking to pivot into. Um, you know, when I was at Colab, there were certain roles. Colab makes software for mechanical engineers. And there were certain roles where it was actually more important that someone had mechanical engineering experience than tech experience because they understood our audience. And so, especially if you're looking to apply to tech jobs where the software itself and the audience and the customers, if there's any connection between your previous work and that stuff, that's really actually a great thing to talk about. And I think if you're looking at your previous career, being able to talk about what you've accomplished and what you've done specifically, like what you've done, and just trying to make that bridge related to what you're looking to do in the tech industry. but certainly like there's nothing wrong with talking about what you did, and a lot of people come into the tech industry from all kinds of backgrounds. So I think don't be afraid to talk about it for sure, and look for the places that it really connects to what you're trying to break into.
Awesome. And I think we are on our very last question, which is awesome. And that is, what are your thoughts on the open to work banner for profile pictures on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally don't have like super strong feelings about it. Some people do. I think it's fine to use it if it feels right to you. Um, I find there's a few people that I know that are freelancers that use the open to work banner, and I find it confusing when freelancers use it, because to me, open to work, I think of that as like a job search, um, not like I'm looking for freelance projects. When I see open to work, I think this person is looking for like a full-time job. But that's just how I interpret it. So there's a lot of mixed opinions out there on that one. I don't have a good answer for this. I would say, like everything, it depends, and definitely feel like you can use it if you want to. There are people out there that do have strong opinions on it. So again, that comes back to knowing your audience and your goals. Like, who are you talking to? Are they likely to, how are they likely to interpret it? And like, it's probably a better question for a tech recruiter of what they think of when they see it. So you could find a tech recruiter on LinkedIn and say, hey, I have a question. Could you tell me what you think about the open to work banner? You could search on LinkedIn to see if there's any posts about it that you could find people sharing their takes. But definitely it is something that some people have feelings about. I don't have strong feelings about it either way. I don't know if it helps or not, but I think if you know that you're looking for a job, like, don't be afraid to say that you're looking for a job. I think be yourself and be open and be honest. So those are kind of my thoughts on the open to work banner. Not super helpful on that one, but hopefully that helps a little.
Well, we have come to the end of our session. Thank you very much, Meag. I personally have found this very useful, and seemingly from the comments, the people attending this also have found it pretty useful. Thank you all for joining, and again, thank you, Meag, for facilitating this session, and please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or concerns.